Welcome, golf fans, pursuers of knowledge in the almighty dollar. This is your golf guru bringing you the 2022 Travelers Championship. This is my preview show with a focus on the betting side. I'm going to cover everything from the course breakdown. We're going to go into all the models that you've grown to love. We're going to talk comp courses, and I'm going to give you my favorite bets and, of course, my super long shot. And first, we will do a quick recap of the U.S. Open, and then we'll move on to talk about the Travelers. So with that said, let's talk some golf. Okay, so I think the best way to summarize this thing is everybody probably talked about today, and you saw yesterday on the 18th hole, where you had Matthew Fitzpatrick, of course, leading by a stroke, and then hit it into this bunker, had a 9-iron in, and Paul Azinger sounded like it was the end of the world, which was kind of funny. I mean, the view that they gave us, when you first saw where it landed, it looked like it was stuck behind that knoll. But honestly, when you get this view of this shot, I'm not saying it wasn't a great shot, but it definitely wasn't as difficult as it looked from the beginning. And of course, also what Mr. Assinger made it sound like. I'm not a huge fan of that guy doing announcing. But give it up to Matthew Fitzpatrick. He pulled it off. We've been waiting for this to happen for, at least the last few months. The next thing I'd bring up, of course, is Will Z, missed the tie and putt that would have got him to another playoff, like at the Farmers or, of course, the PGA Southern Hills. He was actually who I was kind of rooting for from a betting side. Now, from a DFS side, I picked Matthew Fitzpatrick. I also had Will Z. We'll talk about all that here at the very end. But long story short, I felt for him a bit. I mean, we all know it's coming for him too. And it was kind of crazy that the two guys at the very end that had the opportunity both had never won a PGA Tour event. Of course, Will Z had success on Korn Ferry. You had Fitzpatrick, who's won 7 times on the European Tour. But it was kind of crazy that, of course, he won the 2013 Amateur USAM there that I talked about. And you heard all the other stories, so I'm not going to go into all that. But yeah, it was an exciting finish. Scheffler looked like when he came out in the front nine that he had a chance to win this thing. I think there was just a ton of carnage that happened on Saturday, and we'll talk a little bit about that. And that kind of took me out of the running on from a DFS side. And then I had this picture I thought was kind of cool. Of course, Fitzpatrick, almost like in a match play, made his short little putt for the par, which, put all the emphasis that Will Z knew he had to make that putt to get into a playoff. And once he missed it, of course, Fitzpatrick won. But literally, this was his reaction after. It was just looking over at Billy Foster, his caddy, who's been caddying forever, and just the joy that he had for finally winning a major. And then, of course, it seemed like Alex Fitzpatrick, Matthew's brother, was almost more excited than Matthew was. But yeah, it was cool. I liked it. I enjoyed the U.S. Open. I had no qualms. The coverage was a little quirky with, between Peacock and USA and NBC, and, you could jump on the app. That was a little kind of goofy. But all in all, I enjoyed it. And happy belated Father's Day to you guys also. All right, real quick from, how I looked at myself from a fantasy picks. Again, I wasn't super pumped about it. Probably a B minus, C plus, be about the best I could give myself. Now, the positive was, of course, I had Fitzpatrick, my top 10. I had Will Z in the top 5. I had Rory in the top 5. Keegan, I believe he was in my top 15. And then Sebastian, I don't know if he was a cheapie or if he got thrown in the top 15. But from the guys that fell within the top 14, that was it. I had Brian Harmon, who, of course, just fell apart. I think he struggled on Sunday, but also struggled on Saturday. You had a lot of the guys that just blew up. Morikawa and Matsuyama, did not have a good Saturday, but they had great Sundays for what the guys were doing out there. Matsuyama shot 5 under, not a bogey on the scorecard. Yeah, Morikawa, I think that shot 3 under. So those are the guys you needed to have in Showdown Finale. The only regret that I had was I actually had Adam Hadwin in my top 15, and the last moment I pulled him out, and I do not remember who I put him in for. But that kind of bothered me a bit, especially when I think he was leading after day 2 or something like that. Yeah, I think the rest of it, like I said, just didn't have enough guys to fill in. I think I did not pick the Sun Jam, so I was able to skirt that big chalk bomb. But you had guys like Shane Lowry, who hasn't missed a cut in a major, I think it was the last 10 majors. You had Fleetwood, who missed a cut. That was pretty huge. You had 4 amateurs make the cut, and you had some big-time names that missed the cut, of course, right on the number. Oh, Cameron Young, that stung. what a crazy back nine he had to almost make the cut. I think he had a birdie hole in one, which is eagle, birdie, and then I think he had a birdie the last hole, and he missed his birdie, made a par, and missed a cut by a stroke. Like Corey Connors was another guy I had who missed it by a stroke. So, on one side, I was kind of hoping the four overs would make it, but I thought, well, I had a couple 5 out of 6s that, I thought might be able to do something, but with Brian Harman falling apart, it did not help. Okay, I think that's enough about the U.S. Open. Like I said, I enjoyed it. Hope you guys did too. But I'm excited to talk about the Travelers. And I'm excited because I hit some back-to-back really nice outrights. Hit the Travelers with Harris English, and then I hit at the John Deere, which is next. So I hit Lucas Glover. So I'm due. Like I said, from a betting and a DFS side for last weekend, it was not good. But now I didn't play a lot of Showdown. I just didn't have a lot of information that I'm used to from a stroke gain side per round because it's under USGA. Fantasy National was not able to pump the real-time kind of stroke gain information. So that hampers a bit of what I like to do. Anyways, we are staying on the East Coast and heading to Cromwell, Connecticut, not too far from Hartford, Connecticut. Of course, they're playing the TPC River Highlands. This course has been around forever, opened in 1928, and has hosted the Travelers Championship or some other branded tournament there for the past 70-plus years. It was originally Robert Ross, which is he's done a lot of designs in the Michigan area, but in the kind of the Midwest, Upper North region. And then, of course, it was a redesign by Pete Dye back in 1984. And it was quite a good courses that we see Pete Dye do from like Harbortown, Kiowa Island, courses TPC River Highlands, and I'm probably forgetting a couple. This is a par 70, and it's less than 7,000 yards, 68.52. You've got bent / POA fairways. Usually it's always been bent, but they have, I guess, added some POA in here. The rough is actually kind of interesting where they're saying right now from the superintendent information that it's 4 inches plus, which that's, pretty significant at this point. They also said that due to the cold spring that we've had in the Midwest, upper northeastern area, that the rough's taken a while to get, back grown in. So we'll see how that all plays out. But that's a Kentucky bluegrass / they have, that tall ryegrass here too. And then the greens are typically known as bent grass. There is stated that there's some POA trivials added. I don't know if that's being added to maybe help these through the winters. I'm not really sure. I mean, bent grass is typically fine here in the Midwest. So I'm going to stick with bent grass, but just so you know, they are noting that there's a POA trivial in them. We got that full-size player field again, 156 players, but we increase it to T65 in ties instead of the T60 that we just had at the U.S. Open. Historical cut lines over the past 4 years. It's been between 1 under to 3 under. And some of your past winners and winning scores, of course, Harris English had that crazy 8-hole playoff last year with Kramer Hickok, which was it was good entertainment. Of course, I had the money on Harris, as I mentioned. And there was 2 times that Kramer Hickok literally limped out of the hole to win the thing. And it was just crazy that he didn't win it. And that kind of came out of nowhere. I was not on Mr. Hickok for that tournament at all. He brought, his putter just went in fuego for that tournament, which is pretty unique for him. The year before that, you had Dustin Johnson win at 19 under, which, is a little higher than average there. You had Ches Reavie win at 17 under. Then you had Bubba Watson, who won at 17 under. Bubba Watson's actually won 3 times on this course, but he is not in the field. And we'll talk a little more about lefties. These are not smaller than average. These are average size greens at 5,000 square feet. So that smaller needs to be removed. I think that was still pulled over from the U.S. Open stuff. Number of sandbunkers, 69. You've got 4 water hazards where 5 holes come into play. I'll show you that on the map. Stip meter, I don't have a number from the superintendent, but what I do have is that in the past couple of years, they've run fast. So I would put them somewhere around 12 to 13 on these bent greens. And acres of fairway is 26. Not super large fairways, but not the smallest either. I'd say just a little less than average. We'll put it that way. Course defense, you got a bit here. You got, fast, slopey greens. It looks like the rough is definitely going to be a factor and a little bit higher than it was last year. Water could be a factor. We'll talk about the holes that comes into play. Of course, it is tree line. You've got elevations. I think I already mentioned that, we have to check the weather when it comes. Sand saves actually show up here now, even though that's, less than 70 sand bunkers, but guys who finish in the top 10 have done well out of sand in the sand save area. So I brought that, I'm going to put that in the model. And then funny enough, they do have that 3-hole stretch, which they call the golden triangle, which I don't know. I just find it humorous. Typically, we're used to like the snake pit or the green mile. Usually it's a little more intimidating than the golden triangle, but that's what they call it. There's just some notes that I made. What I've noticed here, and maybe it's a total quinky dink, but I mentioned Bubba Watts has won 3 times on this course. You had Phil Mickelson win here back to back in 2001, 2002. If you look at who's gained the most strokes total over the past 5 years, Brian Harmon leads that category. You had Hammer and Hank Laboda, who started off a crazy summer last year, finished 5th, and then had like 3 top 10s. After that, we were waiting for him to get a win, which never happened. What that means on a summary is what I've noticed is lefties tend to do well here at TPC River Highlands, a bit like at Augusta, where I just, you can look at it a couple ways where if you look at Bubba and Phil, you do need to be a shot maker on this course. But I think the way that, if you play the fade as a lefty, some of these holes just set up better for that. Or I guess if you hit a draw as a righty. So with that note, I'm going to talk about this a little more, but Garrick Hago is a lefty that's in the field that we'll talk about. And then just another note, in 2020, Mackenzie Hughes, I don't know if this is a course record. I didn't see that, but he shot a 60 on the opening round. You had Sadoshi Kadair, who I hit last year as a round 1 leader, shot a 63. I think he tied. Kramer Hickok, I think, shot a 63 too. So there was 2 guys that shot a 63 last year, opening round. So if you're thinking about round 1 leaders, there's a couple that have done it in the past, which means absolutely nothing that they'll do it again, but just so you know. Okay, so real quick, we can look at the scorecard. We haven't had this in a while because we've been playing a lot of first-time courses, and I'm going to run through this pretty quick. It's very typical. You have the 6 birdie opportunities. You have the 6 bogey opportunities. You can see it's a rough stretch coming in on these final 3 holes, and we got to watch 17 and 18 over and over and over in the playoff last year. So if you got to see that, you'll know those holes very well. 17's got the water in front of it. I think they were hitting an iron off the tee, and then you were hitting something like 180, into that. And then number 18 here has a sand on the left. It's got that big hill on the right. So if you hit it up on the hill on the right, it could come down, but most time it was getting stuck up there. And then you had that, Sunday pin. It was front right with the trap right there that, I think that's even where Jordan chipped it in, I believe, for the win back in 2017. Some of the easier holes, I guess number 2. Right here at 341, you've got this par 5. That's the easiest hole and also the best eagle chance, I believe it is. Oh, I might be wrong. I can take that back. It's number 13 that comes up with the most eagles, but both the par 5s here are gettable, but there's only 2 of them. And what also you'll notice, and I put this in the model, is there's a ton, I think 8 par 4s that are between 400 and 450. So I definitely threw that in the model. The only yardage that I saw change against the official scorecard that just got put out was number 17. They added about 11 yards. That's it. Everything else is exactly the same. And so again, this is a terrible map, but the one that the PGA just released is just as bad or worse because it's got all these, visual things in front of it about, where do you go to drink and eat and parking. So this one's at least the cleanest. And all I wanted to show you on this anyways is here is number 17 I was talking about. Well, I'll just do this. I think I got this. Yeah, there's the golden triangle. But this was the hole we saw them tee off. They'd hit it somewhere in this location, then carry the water over. Again, you got water coming to play on 15, and then let me go. Neither here or there. You can see the water comes into play really on 13. I think I mentioned 5 water hazards, but really only 4 holes. So 13, 15, 17, 16, and then it looks like on this par 3, number 8, you got a little water in front. And then here's just a quick visual. I do not know what hole this is off the top of my head that I'm looking at, but it gives you a little visual of what we're looking at. You can see the trees, a little bit of a lot of banking on this course, it seems like. So you are going to get banked back into the fairways. It looks quite a bit of, I remember. And this is where I always tell you, you can go watch the round highlights from last year or the previous years. If you've never seen this tournament and you want to get a better visual of what this course looks like, I would highly recommend go to YouTube, type in the Travelers Championship 2021 round 1 highlights, and then just kind of work from there. All right, so again, some more past champions, and then we're going to go into some stroke gain data. There's some unique things, but I already mentioned DJ, of course, right? This is a thing I pulled from last year, so we don't have Harris English here. You got Ches Reavie, who I think's kind of interesting bet. You got Bubba, who's not in the field. Jordan, Russell Knox, which again, we'll talk about him. There's Bubba again, Streelman, Ken Duke. Now we're getting back there, Mark Leishman, Freddie Jacobson, and then, so on and so forth. So let's look at the last year stroke gain data. So what did these top 5 finishers do very well? And this is probably one of the first times I can remember this. But if you look at, they gained quite a bit off the tee. If you just kind of focus on these top 5 guys, and gained very minimal on the top 5 guys on approach. And they did it all around the green and with the putter. And that's very rare. Typically, in the top 5 guys, approach is going to be at least one of them. And you can do it multiple ways here. I'm going to show you that. But I just thought that was very interesting. So the only thing I would say consistent out of this is you got to hit fairways and you got to be able to putt, have a good putting outing. And you can kind of look at the guys. Again, Mark Leishman popped up. I mentioned past winner here before. All right, so we look at the year DJ won in 2020. So now, funny enough, he didn't gain, which is shocking. He's just neutral against the field. But now he went pretty crazy with the irons and also did it with the putter. So now we can see, which is a little more typical, is, you gain a little bit off the tee, you gain, more with the irons, and then gain with the putter. But again, the putter is the one thing I'd say consistently over and over at this course that, I don't want to say it's a putting contest, but it is definitely shows up year after year that the guys have to gain some significant strokes and gain putts outside of 20 feet. There's quite a bit of that. And around the green is more prevalent here. Short game seems more prevalent than at other courses. And then you'll see this name, Will Gordon, and I just thought it was crazy when I saw his name. I totally forgot about this guy, but I don't know where he's at. I don't even know if he's a Canadian. I don't think he's a Canadian, but yeah, for a little while there, he had a little bit of a streak. And I don't know if this was the tournament. I think it is. This tournament got him either in a FedEx playoff. Oh, let me think about this. Either got him from not having to go back to the Corn Ferry Tour. It did something of some substance. And now I've totally blanked on what it was that when he got this third place finish, either he got into a tournament or he kept his card. It was something of significance. You know what? I will find that out. And maybe I'll put it up here for you guys or talk about it tomorrow for you. But yeah, Will Gordon, where have you been? I've not heard anything about him. All right, then the last one we'll look at is Ches Reavie. The year he won, Zach Zucker, who, there's some crossover, and I did not put this course in the comp, but I'm going to have to. Guys that have done well in Detroit at the Rocket Mortgage have also, seems like there's some crossover where Zach Zucker had a good year at the Rocket Mortgage. It just dawned on me. It is bent greens. There's some similarities. I've actually walked and played that course. It's more of just a back forth kind of thing. But anyways, getting a little off task. Again, you can see not a whole lot gained with the tee. You don't have to be a bomber here. You just need to hit the fairways. Approach is a little more prevalent out of these guys. But again, you'll see that, the putter was definitely evident. You're not seeing like losing a stroke or being neutral and winning this tournament. I haven't, at least for the last 3 years, like kind of what Mr. Jordan Spieth did at the RBC Heritage. Okay, so as always, I give you my skill set ranking from a stroking analysis side. What does it take? What kind of player are we looking for to win at the Travelers? So this is what I'm going with. I'm going to go with number 1, good drives. You have to have guys, and what is good drives? It's guys that are either hitting the fairway or the first cut, and then on their approach, they're hitting the green. So it's a combination, kind of like off the tee takes distance and fairways into consideration. What I've noticed when we get to these kind of little shorter, tighter courses, more strategic, tactical, whatever you want to call it, the good drive stat works better than trying to do like driving distance and fairways or off the tee. At least that's what I've noticed over the history of doing this. So that's what I'm going to go with. Next, even though approach, I don't care. If you are sticking your irons within 10 feet all the time, you're going to do very well. So going to stick with guys with approach. I do have putting up pretty high. Then I got a lot more around the short game, around the green and sand saves. That's a little different than usual. Not so much focused on the ball striking. And we'll talk a little bit about that. Because the procs to the pins that show up, we have a ton of data for this, of course, this event and this course, as I mentioned. But 150 to 175 is 25% of the shots coming in after the tee shot into the green is from that distance. And the next one was 125 to 150 comes in around 20%. But I didn't put that one in the model. I left it out. I didn't want to convolute it too much. And then I mentioned these par fours. There's 8 of them, 400 to 450. So that's going to be in there. We need guys to make birdies here. And then I'm really actually interested in this putting, making putts, or who putts the best outside of 25 feet. Just everything from my knowledge and watching this tournament. So many putts were made outside of 20 feet. And, hence those crazy high putting stroke numbers, stroke gain numbers. So I'm going to put that in the model. I'm not going to set it high, but I'm going to put it in the model. All right. So with that said, of course, I've created you a custom stat model. This is what I'm going with. You can tell me in the comments if you agree or disagree, so you can use it. But this is where I'm going to be leaning. And this is purely looking at recent form. So I'm going to show you 12 rounds of data and then 24 rounds of data. No filters turned on. And the good news is it took me a while to get the show out because Fantasy National did not have out the pricing for Draftkings or anyone out, and they just got the odds in. So this is a betting kind of show. So the good news, we got the betting odds here. So you can look at the guys that you're like, oh, that's interesting, and see the odds. And they're pretty close to what I've been seeing on DraftKings Sportsbook and PointsBet. So anyways, let's go through this real quick. So I mentioned approach. I've only got that weighted at 10%, but I make up with it also at that proximity 175 to 150. I put that at 15% because of how many shots are coming in from that distance. So technically I got 25% weighted on approach. I got putting at 15, good drives at 20, around the green at 10, sand saves at 5, those par fours I mentioned at 5, birdies at 5. And then when I do my picks, I will also have that birdie chart up so we can see how guys have been doing on that side. Putting from 25 feet out, and the short game really shows up comparative to ball striking. So that's something that is tracked within Fantasy National. Is it a ball striker course? Is it a short game course? This one fell to the short game course, so I got that at 10%. With all that said, the guys that pop up is Justin Thomas, of course, been playing really great golf. Not the best U.S. Open, but hey, as some of you guys asked me, you were kind of shocked that I didn't have my top 5, and I just wasn't feeling it. But hey, on that note, I was plugging Cam Smith, and I forgot that was probably ultimately what really did me on a DFS side. We're gonna have to really evaluate Cam going forward. I was really hoping with him taking an inch off the driver that he would be hitting some more fairways, but felt like everything was a little off for Cam. So he might just need a break. I don't know. All right, moving on. You got Joaquin Niemann, who's had a good showing here in the past. I don't know if it was 2 years ago, 3 years ago. Also a winner at Old TPC White, which they don't play anymore. The Military Tribute, Greenbrier, also known as. So that's kind of interesting. Tony Finau, also someone that I think I finally picked. And of course, he missed the cut at the U.S. Open. He was a bit of a chalk bomb. Brendan Todd, which I've actually already got a bet in. We'll talk about him. You got Sammy Burns, who's been playing great golf. You got McIlroy, Seabez, who I think is interesting. This course seems like it'd be a good fit for him to do something at 80 to 1. Of course, Keegan, one of my picks for the U.S. Open, who, did okay. Had a shot there, kind of fell apart a little bit on Sunday, but was there right in the hunt in the beginning of Sunday. Ches Reavie, your past winner, shows up here, funny enough, which I was kind of shocked that, my model would bring him in, but he has been playing better golf. You got Aaron Rye, you got Scotty Scheffler, who, again, almost had another victory in a major. That was kind of crazy. You got Mito, who, just fell apart on the 18th at the PGA, that makes sense. Davis Riley, I think it'd be a great fit for him. Really good putter. Denny McCarthy, I've already got a bet in. We'll talk a little about him. And you can actually get better odds than that. On PointsBet, you can get him, I believe, 80 to 1 is what I got him at, or 75 to 1, something like that. And then Xander Schauffele, who, like I mentioned already, was probably between him and Cam are the guys that really just took me out of anything from a DFS perspective for the U.S. Open. Okay, now going to 24 rounds. What does that do? A little more data. It's, now we got 6 tournaments we're looking at of golf. Finau actually goes to number 1. You got JT, Burns, Bradley, Scheffler, Pierre, Nima, Todd, Riley. Fleetwood actually pops in there. Denny McCarthy, Seabez, Lanto gets brought in. Lahiri, hey, makes total sense. What Lahiri does typically has been doing very well is hits fairways, pretty good greens, and pretty good short game, pretty good putter. So that 150 to 1 on him is, maybe something to think about. All right, so always after I do recent form, I always want to look at history, and we can finally do this again. It's been a little while, but we've got, again, a ton of history here. And so against my model at TPC River Highlands, if they have it, right, 24 rounds is what I'm pulling, but some of the guys you're going to see don't have that much. They haven't played that here that often. But Kevin Streelman and Brian Harmon are your like top two guys. So if you're starting to thinking about one and done, could be some interesting plays. And then again, you got Todd, Chesreavy, Fleetwood, Spieth, past winner 2017. Danny Lee been playing some good golf, so that's kind of interesting at 250 to 1. You got Brendan Steele, you got Zach Johnson, which I'm sure he's got to be a past winner here. I don't remember that off the top of my head, if I go far enough back, but this seems like such a Zach Johnson course. You got Sneds, Leishman, past winner here. Also a good showing last year. You got Henley, who I think I was all over last year, and I think he was up there in the lead, I think, on Saturday, and then, kind of faded. Jason Day, funny enough, I do have a bet on him, and I don't have him in my favorite bets. I think he's 80 to 1. And that guy's got a really good track record here and had a good showing again last year and has been playing. Got Keegan and Charlie Hoffman. Still, don't play Charlie Hoffman. I guess simplest. Don't bet it. Don't play it. Okay, the next thing that I wanted to know was who's really good at putting on bent greens over the last 36 rounds, which would be 9 tournaments of data. Number 1 comes out Troy Merritt, right? And he, again, a little correlation with the Detroit Golf Club for the Rocket Mortgage. Right, he lost in a playoff. I think it was a one-hole playoff to Cam Davis. So, little side note there, Patrick Cantlay had that crazy run on bent greens, especially in the FedEx Cup. So no shocker there that's getting pulled. Rory's been putting great. You got Brendan Todd, again, who's probably shown life on all fronts, right? Had a shot at the PGA Championship. So we'll talk about him. There's Zach Johnson again popping up. For me, it'll be a DFS play. I just cannot bet Zach Johnson. Jason Kokrak has won a couple times on bent greens, right, at the Charles Schwab, and also when he had his first win at Shadow Creek for the CJ Cup, I believe that was. You got Snedeker, English, Seabass, Martin Trainer, for whatever reason, pops in twice. I don't believe he's 1,000 to 1. If you can find him 1,000 to 1, throw $1 or $2 on it because he has been popping up here or there. Why not? But I think it's probably like 500 to 1. If you actually find it. I haven't actually even looked at it. Killer Keith, you got Austin Cook, who showed up, the RBC, I think, if I remember correctly, not too long ago, which is a good comparable course. I use in that. You got Mackenzie Hughes again, and then Patrick Rogers, who also had a good showing just recently here at the U.S. Open. So there's some names for you if you're looking just from a putting standpoint on bent greens. Now, if you're looking for guys that just have really good short games, this I think they take as 30 yards out is what it's considered. So around the green is literally around the green. Short game, I believe that statistic comes from 30 or 50 yards out, just so you understand the premise. Again, looking at 24 rounds, so that'd be 6 tournaments, depending if they make the cut or not. Now, the guy comes up number 1 from a short game. You got Diddy McCarthy, you got Troy Merritt, Burns, JT, Todd, Jason Day again, Finau, Bill Haas. Be a good DFS, 6,000 kind of play. He has been making quite a few cuts. Keegan Bradley, Fleetwood, Malnati, not a bad first round leader bet. He can come out hot on a first round. The McGirt, I don't know why I like saying his name, Willie McGirt, and you got Martin Trainer. Again, I don't think these guys are 1,000 to 1, but if you find it, throw a buck on it. Why not? And Patrick Cantlay. Okay, so the next thing that I wanted to look at was guys that have been hitting fairways and then hitting the green on their approach, which equals good drives. And your number 1 would be Mito Piera. You got Party Marty Laird, Mr. Xander Schauffele, JJ Spawn, Aaron Rye, Brendan Steele, Adam Long, Lucas Glover, Doug Gim, Lahiri, McElroy, Lipsky, M, Todd, and CT Pan. Again, you can check out their odds right here. We'll talk about CT Pan. I think that's an interesting one. And again, this is over the last 6 tournaments or 24 rounds. Then the next model that I ran was looking, of course, at the irons, which I call the Iron Man. And this is looking at, again, the past 6 tournaments, 24 rounds. And if you want to know who's been best on approach, period. So this is the guys from all different distances who's had the best irons. You got Sam Burns, Scheffler, HV3, Schauffele, Wise, Henley, Piera, McElroy, Spieth, Thomas, Steele, Van, EVR, Vegas, CT Pan, Tony Finau. And then what I wanted to look at is focus on that proximity that comes in at 25% of all approach shots at this 150 to 175. Again, 6 tournaments, 24 rounds of data. The number 1, and some of these are doubled up. I have no reason or no clue why. But you got Nick Watney, John Hunt, Kelly Craft, Mackenzie Hughes, JT, Dwawi Vanderwalt, Jonathan Vegas. Lee Hodges, J.J. Henry, Alonto Griffin, Streelman, and Chesson Hadley. I added a few more in because they were doubled up, so still gives you about 15 guys. If you're curious who's the most accurate from 150 to 175. And then, as mentioned, here you go. Here are the specialists, the Pete Dye specialists that seem to do very well, like Siwoo Kim, who's won the Players. He's won the American Express. So that'd be a TPC Sawgrass. HV3 has had good success at RBC Heritage. You got Harris English, who's won the Travelers. Trying to see anything else stands out. Brian Harmon, of course, I've already mentioned, has done very well at this course at TPC River Highlands. So anyways, if you want to understand out of this field who has had the most success at different Pete Dye designs, these are the guys that pop up. And these two are always, for right now, been the top two guys whenever I pull up Pete Dye. So no shocker there. And again, that's over the past 6 tournaments on Pete Dye courses. That would even include probably the PGA at Kiowa, just side note. All right, with that said, as always, I did want to pull comparable courses because we have some really good comparable courses for TPC River Highlands. The number one that I think is, and the good news is a lot of these comparable courses, we just saw the guys play these tournaments. So like the Charles Schwab, that was not too long ago at Colonial. You had the RBC Canadian Open, which was at St. George's. The John Deere, it's been almost a year, right? Lucas Glover won there, but is a great comp course. I believe it's a par 71, but Ben Green's very similar how the kind of the flow of the course. Again, also a TPC course. You've got where they held the Wells Fargo's championship at TPC Potomac, which is Avondale Farms. And that was very recent. And again, par 70, a little longer. I think it was around 7,100 yards off the top of my head. But also Ben Green's had tough rough. And then I threw the RBC in there. It's a Pete Dye course, but also very similar with the tree line, smaller greens. You have to be, it's a tactical, strategic course. And then, of course, we had TPC River Highlands. Those were the 6 comparable courses. I ran it over the past 6 tournaments on those courses. And up number 1 came Brendan Todd, which, again, 80 to 1. I think Matt McNeely's interested, 80 to 1. You got Keegan, Cantlay, Seabez, Justin Lauer, who's been kind of showing up on leaderboards a little bit. HV3, Jordan Spieth, Burns, McElroy. My Brokeback Mountain, Patty Kazire, which I have actually quit him for quite a bit. So I finally got over that. Tommy Fleetwood, Brian Harmon, Andrew Landry, and Brian Stewart, who typically will show up on these type of tracks. Very accurate off the tee, but not very long. Okay with the irons, and everything else is okay. But he typically hits fairways. Okay, with all that said, let me give you my favorite bets. Again, this is an eye with where I like the odds with a chance to win. These are outright winners that I'm looking at. But, hey, this is a tournament. Even though it's a pretty strong field that we have, we'll see how that all shakes out. As if any guys withdraw, of course, that just came out of the U.S. Open. And, so we'll see. With that said, my number one first guy I thought of was Brian Harmon. And you can get him 50 to 1 at PointsBet. I think he's 40 to 1 on Sportsbook. So note to self, go to PointsBet 50 to 1. The next guy I'm looking to bet is Mr. Denny McCarthy. He's 75 to 1 to win. And I think he's also maybe 80 to 1 on Sportsbet, but I already plugged it in. I don't think I'm going to change it for 5 points. 10 points maybe. We'll see. But yeah, Denny McCarthy, he of course showed up again at the U.S. Open. He's been playing really good golf. Had a good showing at the Wells Fargo, at Avondale Farms. Of course, an amazing putter. And I told you guys his ball striking has gotten a little better. So good chance that he could do something here. It seems like that the guys with the hot putters win this event. Of course, with that said, Brendan Todd also showed up at the PGA, as I discussed, at Southern Hills. Those were bent greens. That was 7,500 yards, so it was a little longer, but it was a par 70. I think it was a par 70. 2 par 5s, if I remember correctly. 100 to 1 to win. And I believe I put that on Draftkings Sportsbook. So I like that. And CT Pan, of course, past champion RBC Heritage. And been playing really good golf. And 150 to 1 to win. I like those odds, so I threw a little bit on that. And last but not least, one of your past champions here. I think he won, what was it, 2015? Russell Knox, 200 to 1 to win. Right, he showed up at the Pete Dye TPC Sawgrass for the Players. Really hasn't done a whole lot since. I didn't really do a whole lot of investigation. I just kind of saw he was 201 to win, showed some recent form, and is a past winner here. So maybe he could do it again. Typically, of course, it's the putter with Russell Knox, so he'd have to have a hot one. All right, and now for my super long shot. You might already guess who this is. I've talked a little bit about this earlier, but right off the bat, it's 301 to win, or he is 300 to 1 to win. For a top 10, 25 to 1, which is pretty nice. I think he's 45 for a top 5, but anyways, that's the 2 bets. I already put the 300 to 1 to win. Last event, he played in the Memorial and actually ended up 18th, and it's actually his best showing in a while. Before that, of course, his second event on tour, he won the Palmetto, coming off the DP World Tour now. And of course, I'm talking about Garrick Higo. And why am I betting him? He's a lefty. And I think, like I said, we got only a few. Well, Bubba's not in it. Mickelson's not in it. So we got Hank Laboda, Higo, and Harmon that I can think of. There might be a rookie Corn Ferry guy in there that I'm not thinking of. But yeah, I mean, we know he can win. He has won on tour. Pretty good ball striker. Can get a little wayward and can get pretty hot with the putter. As you see, when he won, he gained almost 4 strokes and gained 3.2. So just feel like he's had a lot of miscuts over since the start of the year. So it's been pretty rough, but he did show life at Jack's place. So 301, and maybe there's something with this whole lefty thing. We'll find out. All right, with that said, that is my preview show for the Travelers. I thank you for your time, and hopefully this helps you start getting some thoughts on who you want to bet on. And then tomorrow I'll have my pick show out for you. And anything else that I think one and done will also be in there. But do me the honor, as always, click that like button. If you're not a subscriber, become a subscriber. Put out 3 shows a week, and you will get notified of when they come out or anything else that I do put out. And last but not least, follow me on Twitter if you want to keep up with anything from withdrawals or anything from the PGA Tour communications or anything that I see I put out regarding pressers, or like Jordan Spieth before the U.S. Open. Found out that he came down with a stomach issue. So I put that out there, and it kind of showed his first round was pretty rough. But anyway, so yeah. All right, guys, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Have a great evening.